spiel. So welcome everyone to Chevalier's Books Online. We are the oldest independent bookstore in Los Angeles. This is our 80th year in business, hopefully of many, many more to come. And tonight we are absolutely ecstatic to be hosting Rosie Mercado for her new book, just released today, The Girl with the Self-Esteem Issues. I'd like to first, however, introduce her conversational partner this evening, Dr. Judy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Dr. Judy does it all to prove that she just finished a class before she joined us, and so she is busy. So we are so grateful that she is taking time out of her evening tonight. She is a neuropsychologist, an associate professor at Pepperdine, TV and podcast host, and the published author of the book Stop Self-Sabotage. But today, her job is going to be interrogating our main star, Rosie Mercado, about her new book. Rosie is also a multitasker. She is a model, a life coach, a co-host on Face the Truth, and hosts her own podcast of the same name, The Girl with the Self-Esteem Issues. There is a good reason she's been named one of the top 25 most powerful Latinas. And before I hand the mic over, I'm actually going to borrow an idea from Rosie's podcast, where she always uses an inspiring quote to kick off an interview. And it's a little bit cliche, but I'm choosing to read from Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my steps, the curl of my lips. I am a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. To phenomenal women gracing us tonight, give a warm welcome to Dr. Judy Ho and Rosie Mercado. Ladies, if you would take it away.
What a great way to start. Wow, what a quote. Yay, we start. So excited.
I'm so excited to be celebrating you today, Rosie. Congratulations on finishing your book.
Thank you so much. It's been such a long process, but you know what? It's great. Everything I've been saying, everything that I've been praying for the last couple years it's manifested into this. It's been a blessing. So I'm excited to share. Finally, The Girl with Self-Esteem Issues. It's out. Today's like the book birthday.
I know, it's so amazing. And I can't wait to hear some excerpts from your amazing book. Everybody needs to go and get a copy. You guys can see it in the chat. But maybe I can just start, maybe if I can just insert a quick question before you read an excerpt from your book. What inspired you to write this book?
I think authenticity. It really comes down to authenticity. It's giving myself permission to give a different story to what failure actually meant. Being an invitation to step into my own greatness and inviting others to come along with me, taking the shame out of what we call failures. And really, I found it like really therapeutic to just take responsibility for the things that I contributed to it. So it just gave me so much power saying, okay, I made a mistake. What's the lesson behind it? What did I learn? And how can this move me forward? And how can I keep growing from this place? So when I am met with one of those moments again, it asks the quality question, what can I learn from this? What is this teaching me?
Well, and I think that's so important for everybody to know, because obviously everybody's going to have challenges in life, things happen, but it's really about what you learn from those challenges, and that's how you build resiliency. So I love that you're modeling that for everybody and showing them the way to basically not only bouncing back, but really living a full and authentic life. So that's so fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, it's crazy just to like see the book and how like everything has come together, and just, you know, I think it's to walk in authenticity and just not be so caught up, like finally to be able just to say, this is my story. I take responsibility. I acknowledge everything that I went through. And that's not going to define me as a woman. It's not going to hold me back. If anything, it's going to push me forward. And you know what? You know, we all go through things. There's ups and downs in life. So as much as I celebrate the good moments, I have to be able to be appreciative for the bad moments, because there's always lessons in that have made me the woman that I am today. So
it's a great message, and also a beautiful book cover. They did a job. Yay!
Yay!
Oh, it looks so good, Rose.
Look at that.
So proud of
Thank you. Thank you. It's definitely The Girl with Self-Esteem Issues. And what I absolutely love is also that not only is it in English, but in December, it's going to be coming out in Spanish. So I get to honor everything that my parents have done, my ancestors, like just honor the Latino side, honor that, those values, those roots, give that respect and pay it forward. So two languages, it's definitely it's been interesting to be able to go in and then and just translate everything over and just say, wow, like all the hard work, like you don't think about it, but this will be in two languages. And what a great legacy to leave behind. What a way to like leave a story where my grandchildren and their grandchildren could pick up a book and read.
Did you write that in English first and then you went back and
In Spanish?
Spanish?
Yes, it was a whole process. It was working on it in English and going through the process and making sure everything was the exact way that I wanted it to be. And then going in Spanish and then finding those proper words to be able to connect and go from there. And to really get the point across, the story across, that for me was interesting.
My gosh, that's like writing 2 full books though, is what you did. Basically.
Yeah. It really comes down to that. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I look at it and it's like, I can't believe it's in Spanish too. And I don't know, it's so exciting to be able to tell my parents, like, this book is coming out in Spanish, Mom and Dad. And,
so
God is good.
I love it. Oh, it's so great. Well, are you going to read maybe a little excerpt from your book for us?
Yes. Oh my God, girl, you know that I'm all about affirmations. So this is something that, here's a quote that I love. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. An affirmation that you should always live by. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. I choose to forgive and let go with love. And today I choose to love myself for everything that I am. Take a deep breath and then breathe out and let it go. That for me it's been so healing, because I was holding on to the past. And even a couple years ago, when meeting you, I was still going through the process of healing. So to be able to let something go finally with love means, okay, when it comes to that part of my life, I'm no longer waiting for that apology that may never come. I'm no longer waiting to find out why, because sometimes that's something that just hurts us so much in the waiting and asking that question that really at some point, it just doesn't matter. It happened. And you gotta know that if you're facing infidelity, especially when it comes to infidelity, for me, it was really hard to let go. And I always wondered, what did I do wrong? I was always taking someone else's mistake and taking responsibility for it. It was my fault. And it's become so unhealthy. And being able to just go through the process of healing and saying, it doesn't matter why it happened, and I let it go. And that's a reflection of their spirit and not mine. And I could finally close the door and just move on in a different direction. And life reflects, back at you who exactly you are.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes, it takes time and it takes a lot of patience with yourself to get to something that profound, because I think it's so easy that we want to ignore the negative feelings, suppress them, avoid them, push them away, instead of just sitting there and knowing that that is part of the self journey, which is so hard.
It is.
And
I think it's so hard, but I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because people think it's like, okay, I'm going to be empowered and I'm just going to run through it. And it just, we're human. It just doesn't work. And everybody's timing for healing is very much different. And if people can acknowledge that, and whenever you're going through any kind of loss and any kind of failure that you're going through, you go through the process of mourning, and it is part, and you have to allow as a human being to feel those emotions and cleanse yourself and move on. And you have to be able to move on at the right timing once you go through the healing. But you have to allow yourself. Don't suppress it. You have to allow, because if not, it will manifest in other ways. Like it will show up in other ways. And that's what I started seeing for me, because I suppressed it so long. It showed up in eating. I was going to food, and it's like, it gave me that soothing effect, and it became unhealthy. It became unhealthy because the weight started, it was my way of protecting myself.
Right. Well, I mean, you've been through so much. You've also obviously had a lot of positive role models in your life too. And I want to talk about your family and how important they are to you and what they've taught. But when you were younger, especially, you dealt with loneliness, bullying, a lot of different things because you look different from other people. And somehow people really drove that side of you that basically caused you to maybe at certain points not fully accept yourself, maybe even
Oh, girl.
they're saying about you, and just all of the emotional eating over the years. I would just imagine that maybe it was like a negative cycle because then people tease you maybe for what they saw was your weight, and then you would eat more because of the emotional eating and the soothing that you would have to do to try to heal from that in the moment.
You know what? I think growing up and getting bullied and then also constantly being told that whether I didn't fit in or because I was Mexican or I was always the fat girl, and because I was always told that I was a fat girl, I didn't fit in. There was always I didn't feel like I was ever a part. I became very lonely during school and growing up. So that for me was really hard. But I think it took me to a place like I the revelation always comes after time, but it took me into radio, into finding my voice, and to doing other things. And I look back now and I wish I would have gotten to experience a prom. I wish I would have gotten to experience what other high school teenagers go through. And I didn't, because I didn't feel like I was a part. I constantly felt rejected. Because I felt rejected, I started rejecting certain areas of myself. Constantly 120-degree heat weather in Vegas and covering myself in a sweater. That tells you how much I was going through that. It just tells me how much like I was just pushing back on that.
Yeah. Well, and it makes so much sense because at that time you just weren't, again, that bullying, that teasing, that judgment, it caused you to maybe not fully accept yourself either. And you were sort of hiding parts of yourself from the world. But you've had so many wonderful relationships as well in your life, and especially your family, your parents, learning to be an entrepreneur at an early age.
Yeah.
Family has thriving businesses. So there's obviously a lot of good in the people that you grew up with. So how did you reflect that, kind of learning from your immediate family, who I know you're so close to, but then kind of seeing the outside world and obviously sometimes how cruel the outside world can be?
So because that outside world was so cruel, I'm so thankful that my parents pushed me to find my passions, the things that I absolutely love. So I'm grateful for that. And that, like I said, it pushed me into radio. It pushed me into starting a makeup business. I fell in love with makeup and the art of it and the art of transformation. And it started there. Going into different kinds of businesses, some I succeeded in, some I failed, but my parents, I always learned, they always had a hustle. They always had diversified income. They were constantly productive and busy in a way that they knew, like, this is productive. I saw constant movement, which allowed me to be able to create that constant movement and focus on things that were productive and positive in my life when it comes to that area of my life. I just feel that because I missed out on so much and I felt like I didn't fit in, I felt that, first of all, I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to go out on dates, and I didn't get to experience that. Number one, because culturally, like, it's just not, as a Latina, like, that's just, you wait. And my first boyfriend had to go ask him for permission to date me and so many things. So I think the power of faith and just consistently working on something productive was really big part of me growing up, which allowed me also, as I grew up, hustle hard to get to where I'm at today, because that work ethic was instilled in me. What I had to learn is how to develop healthy relationships, a healthy relationship with myself and healthy relationships with others. And because I didn't quite get it at a young age and I really wasn't around that, I went through a lot of things. I made decisions based off of fear, right? Out of desperation rather than inspiration. And that's something that really came up. That's one of the biggest learning lessons that came up as I got older.
Yeah. And I think that, again, that comes from experience. It doesn't come just from, even if you have good role models, you still have to live your own life to learn those lessons. But since you mentioned relationships, let's talk about your relationship. That's a big part of the book when you talk about your relationship journey. I mean, we're all looking for love. We all want to be loved. We want to be accepted. Of course, we're looking for our families, people who we're going to grow old with. So you had quite a journey in your love relationship. So let's talk a little bit about that and what some things you can share about that journey.
Well, the journey of love, like you said, everybody wants to be loved. You want the romance, you want the connection, you want someone to grow older with. For me growing up, it was about having a husband, having my kids, being able to travel once a year, doing the things that I grew up doing in an RV with my family, having a business that's owned by my husband and I, and just living that lifestyle because that's what I was raised watching. Like I saw my parents do that. They would take us out once a year to Mexico. We travel. I mean, there was such a strong family unit, and seeing my parents working together consistently, going, being part of church and always contributing. So there was always this positive factor of family, marriage, contribution to business. Like that for me was like, like that's what I wanted. Well, that's not what I created for myself. I wanted it so bad. And when you want something so bad, it seems like it gets further and further away. It's like the more you reach for it, the more you want it, the more desperate you become after it's, the more it seems like it just kind of like disappears, and it seems like it's so distant. And I got into these relationships that taught me lots of lessons. And the biggest lesson is that I had to understand that I was worthy of love. I had to learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to pay attention to red flags. I had to learn to understand that when people show you who they are, you got to believe them. And I had to learn to find my voice. And it took me 3 divorces to really find myself. It took me to hit rock bottom and really look at myself of why wasn't I in a relationship, and why did I tolerate the abuse? Why did I tolerate the infidelity? Why did I tolerate the disrespect? And it comes down to self-esteem. It comes down to self-worth. I believed everything that I was told, that I would never amount to anything, that nobody would ever love me, because I had previous relationships that I had failed, and more because they were marriages. That I was too fat to be loved, that was, that I heard that so much that it got me scared into making a different decision of saying, this is toxic. I knew it was toxic. I was afraid to leave because I thought that was my last chance. That was it. And if I didn't stick to it, nobody would ever love me or my kids.
I think that oftentimes we probably say the meanest things to ourselves, even more so than our critics. Yeah. And it's that inner voice that is even more hurtful than maybe what an ex could say to you, or a naysayer or a critic. But you do start to internalize certain messages over time, whether it's the voices of other people or what you tell yourself. And it kind of sounds like it took a while for you to really get to the other side of, no, I deserve better.
Yeah. I
deserve more. So let's talk about your marriage now, because this is sort of the culmination of these lessons. Yeah. And tell me about how you met your husband. I remember that you guys actually reconnected when we were working on Face the Truth together.
Yeah.
How this feels different than the other relationships that you've had.
It feels different because even while I was going on Face the Truth was such a benchmark in my life. Number one, I made a dream a reality. I got to be on a show, and there was moments that I'd look around, I'd look at you, and I look at Ariva, and I'd look at Vivica, and I'm like, how the hell did I get here? And I would question everything that I was doing. And I went through the process of, hold on, this is what you worked for. Why are you second guessing yourself? This is what you worked for. Like, it's manifested. Do not jeopardize it. And I would do the same thing when it came to my relationship. And I just started tapping into what my triggers were. I started tapping into voicing my opinion. Hey, this is what I love. And you know what? That's a boundary. Don't cross that boundary. And it became very different. Why? Because now I knew who I was as a woman. I knew what I loved. And I knew how to say no. And I paid attention to the red flags. And when I met my husband, it was just so different because he was actually my first boyfriend when I was 16. And we went in different directions. And coming full term, 22 years later, we reconnect. It's just a place of, if I have a trigger at this point in my life, I'm able to say, you know what? I apologize. That is a trigger. but he respects my vulnerability, and he listens to it of saying, you know what, I got it. Let me not do that. And while you work through it, and there's a really big sense of respect and communication. And there's not a place where he uses my vulnerability against me. And I absolutely love that. And he respects my yeses and he loves my nos. He knows when I mean no, I mean no. And I think that's a healthy relationship. And we have time apart. He does his thing, I do mine. It's a different dynamic. It's a different relationship. And I think the most important part is faith. Like faith for me is really, really important to be able to connect in that way. And now we have a baby. We have a 5-month-old. It's been a couple years. That's been 2 years now. We have a 5-month-old. So it's definitely been a complete change in my life.
And it's so cute because he's actually known you since so long ago. That it's somebody from your childhood. And I feel like it's such a lovely story of rediscovering that love. And obviously you weren't necessarily looking for him and he wasn't necessarily looking for you at the moment, but then you found each other. And it's really an awesome story of, you know, what can happen when people shift and change through life and they come back in your life, and, you know, there's seasons. And then one day you realize, oh, this is the person for me. Like, how crazy is that? That you guys actually dated as kids.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like as kids? Like, how's that different, obviously, than like the adult version of marriage, children, and like the adult responsibilities?
Oh my God. I being in a relationship at the age of 16, I was, number one, so innocent and inexperienced that, and also my upbringing. I think culturally there's a lot of lessons that I've learned, a lot of values. And I'm so thankful that my parents had those values. Back then I didn't understand because I wanted to do what all the American girls were doing. Like everybody at school was doing. Like I wanted to go on dates. I wanted to go to the mall. I wanted to go to the games, but I was not allowed to do that. And when he was my first boyfriend, I was not allowed to date until I was almost 17 years old. And if a boy wanted to date me, he had to go and ask for permission. So he did just that. He asked permission to court me, and he would go and visit me for an hour and a half max on the porch with a light, and we would talk. And that was the course of our dating. It lasted several months. He gave me my first kiss. I got in so much trouble for getting my first kiss. Like, you do not let a boy kiss you right away. He's got to earn that. So many life lessons. So it's very different because now the decision making, now there's maturity, there's no games. Like, hey, we're both in this, we're both invested. We're both looking in the same direction. There's more maturity. We're just in different places. We're in different places in our life. And now we formed a family. So we understand the importance of value. We have the same values. And that for me is really important. I didn't understand what having values was at a young age.
Yeah. And I think, again, you know, this is all just sort of as you get older, learn with experience, with people who accept you as you are, and also advocating and standing up for what you believe in and what your values are. And what I really love about your story is that as you started to make a career for yourself as a plus size model, as a plus size actress, as a plus size entertainment figure, as a plus size public figure, you really wanted to become more and more of a role model for other people who basically were going through a similar journey, and advocating not only for yourself as a plus size model, but also working with fashion companies that really produce a more inclusive range of clothing that people can really feel good about. So tell me a little bit about that work and what you've learned, and what do you tell people when they say, well, I have tried very hard to be healthy, but my size, I'm never gonna be a size 00. Like, that's just not me. Like,
yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm never gonna be a size 00 girl. Oh my goodness, I was the biggest one on the panel. I remember that. And I remember people were so mean to me when they would watch Face the Truth. Sometimes I'd get emails and they're like, damn girl, you're a big girl. Your hips look really big. Like, you're really gonna sit on that panel. I remember just being on TV just from that perspective and how people would react to me. And when I lost all the weight, people still called me fat. When I gained weight, they're like, what are you doing? You're gaining weight. You're still fat. So I think it was a learning process from plus size model to working in TV. And one lesson that I learned is that the number on the scale does not determine my happiness. And also, I needed to find my own happiness, not based off of my weight, but I needed to make sure that emotionally and psychologically, like, really ask those questions. What makes me happy? Who am I? Am I making decisions based off of my passions and my values? Am I doing something that's productive, something that's helping me grow? Because when we have momentum, when we're growing, that's where happiness is at. And when you do that inner transformation, it reflects on the outside. So making those healthy decisions, not based off of a diet, but just based off of, look, I'm going to take care of me. I want to have vitality. I want to have energy. Making that shift from I'm on a diet, I'm sorry, I can't eat bread, I can't do that, to I'm just deciding to eat healthy. I'm deciding to go on a walk. I'm deciding to get on a bike and ride, that having that freedom really shifts your perspective. So when it came to my body, I learned to have gratitude for my body, and especially now more than ever. And some of the conversations that I have now with women is that I have cellulite, I have stretch marks. They're my battle scars. This body has helped me get through life, through dark moments, through good moments, through moments of celebration, moments of deep pain, moments of sickness, moments of birth. And I have to look at my body and say, what a miracle that is. Thank you. Thank you for still carrying me. Thank you for breathing. Thank you for the movement that I have. As long as I have breath, I have purpose. And if you come from a place of gratitude, you start shifting away from comparing yourself, because I think another thing is that we compare ourselves, especially now social media, we compare ourselves to everybody else. And the thing is, you were made, you were made to stand out, like just the way that you are. Like I always say, like, you're perfectly imperfect. There's nobody in this world that has that perfection, and nobody has what you have. And when you could just learn to love that, you will have a different quality of life. Why? Because your focus is not so much on, I'm not going to wear that dress because I'm not the weight that I want to be, or I'm not going to go out because I'm afraid people are going to criticize me. Look, life happens. This time that we have right now is so valuable. You have to live it. You have to live it to the best, and not let those ideas of body image get to you. Just learn to appreciate and love your body.
Yeah. It's really about what your body can do for you, as opposed to everything about what it looks like. And I think that it's really a lifestyle that you're talking about. It's not about that number. It's about, am I doing the best to feed my body, to take care of my body? And like you said, there's been ups and downs that you've been through with your body, but your body has given you children. Your body has helped you reach all of the goals so far in your life. And we have one body. We got to take care of it, love it, and respect it. Something that I did not know about you, Rosie, this was surprising to me in the book. I had no idea that you went through this, that you were diagnosed with a brain cyst at the age of 20. I can't even imagine how horrifying and scary that is, but how did you find out about it? And then what did you do to overcome it?
So right after my last divorce, I went through so much trauma in my last divorce that, I mean, the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, I knew that I needed to get the hell out of there. Like I hit rock bottom, and I knew right after I made the decision of leaving, I honestly feel that all that manifested in my body from all the emotional, like like my body didn't know how to receive it. So it manifested in the craziest place, which was in my brain. And when that happened, I was constantly just overthinking everything, the depression, the sadness, the fear, like everything, like, oh my God, I'm here again. What am I going to do? And those emotions and the food and everything, my body was alerting me like, hey, like you are on overload, like you have to do something. And as that started happening, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that I had dizziness. I would slur my words. And it got to a point where I had to hold on to things to be able to walk because I didn't have balance.
Oh my gosh.
And I would go to the hospital, and I'm like, they think I was having an anxiety attack, or that I was going to get a stroke, or that I was going to have a heart attack, because granted, I was between 380 pounds and 420. I would go up and down. So they're like, ma'am, you got to lose weight. It's because you're fat. I mean, they would just tell me, it's like, you're going to have a heart attack. You're fat. Like, there's nothing we could do. I went to the hospital so many times that they ended up doing an MRI, and that's where they caught the cyst. So the cyst would like blow up and put pressure on my brain. And when it did put pressure on my brain, that's where I'd lose my balance. That's where I would have to hold on to things and slur my words. And I would try so hard. I remember that my dad would be sitting there like looking at me. He would ask me something, and for me to process, I could hear what he was saying, but for me to process and say it took me a couple minutes. Like I really had to like focus. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And when it came to that, they're like, well, we could do a surgery. They automatically put me on seizure medication. They put me on different kinds of other medication that they added to it. And all I would do is sleep. And then I'd wake up groggy, and here I am again, like having problems walking. I'm like, this can't be life. Like this is like, I just literally going through this now, this is the end of my life. And my dad saw that I needed, he's always been such a force. You have to fight for your life. You can't give up. You need to find answers, be persistent, find answers. Don't take this story as your last story. You got to keep going. Walk while, you keep crying while you walk. Just keep going, go. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, but you have to fight for your life. You have your kids. And that's where it took me to the next part of finding solutions, natural solutions, remedies that would help me. And it was a long journey, Judy. It was such a long journey, but finally I got to a place where I got healthy. And that really was, it seems like it's this ride that just keeps, it's like that took me to the next, and that took me to the next. And it all evolved into taking care of my life and having quality life. That's where you get to value. That's why when people mix it up of saying you lost weight because you sold out to Hollywood, hold on, you don't know the entire story. You don't know why, what these triggers were and what really made me wake up and think. It was one thing to the next.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's an extraordinary thing to go through, to have something basically wrong with your brain and to not know exactly how you're going to deal with it in the moment, and whether or not you are going to get through it. I mean, I'm so scared hearing about that. It's like, again, just like you have one body, one brain, one mind, all of that. And I'm just so glad that you're on the other side. Let's take a couple of questions from people who are joining us. Thank you so much for your questions, guys. So I love these two questions. I want to make sure that we get to them. So the first one is, one of the people joining us says they have a young daughter, and I'm always worried about how to raise her to be strong. And a big part of me wants to make sure she's not hurt no matter what. This is a daddy. So any advice about what a dad can do, or maybe what you wish you had learned when you were younger? And yeah, that dad and daughter bond is so huge.
Yeah.
I definitely am a daddy's girl. I'll just say that out loud, like for sure. And it's so lovely that this man wants to be the best that he can be for his daughter. So thanks for the question. What do you think, Rosie?
I think it's communication. I think number one, communication, that constant communication of not just that one question of how your day is going. Like, no, like get involved in your daughter's or your son's, passions and interests. Like grab their attention by the things that they love. Spend quality time by the things that they love. Why? Because it allows an open door to really get to know your kid. You get to know their friends. You get to know mentally where they're at. So you could be a guiding point, not a friend, a parent, but a guiding point. And I think communication is number one. Number two, I've really learned this throughout the years with each of my kids, because sometimes I'd be like, I'm buying my kids gifts and giving them everything that they want. And what they wanted was, one of them wanted quality time. The other one wanted, wanted to go out to places and just verbal, like he wanted to be uplifted. My daughter wanted, wanted actions and wanted gifts. And, it was a combination of love languages. So for me, it's, number one is communication, get involved in their passions and push them forward. Two, love languages. It's really important to understand your kids' love languages. And I would definitely say that the third one that I learned throughout the way is, don't be ashamed of letting your kids see you fail or fall. I think it's such an important thing for your kids to be able to see that. Why? Because every human being in life is going to have a moment of failure, is going to moment when you fall on your face. And that's great for your kids to see. Why? Because when they see you rise, they will remember the moment when they see you cry and you dry those tears off and you're like, all right, I felt what I felt, but I'm ready. All right, what's next? Let me get back up. Then you're teaching your kid through actions that they might fall. It's going to hurt. They could cry. It's okay. But you're going to motivate them to say, I remember when my dad went through that. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get the strength to find a way out. Your kids learn as you do it, not as you say. So those are lessons that I've learned with my kids.
I love those lessons, and I think that they can be implemented today. This is what's so great about your advice, is that it's practical. We can start today and we can make real changes. So thank you so much for that. I also love this next question about hustle and work ethic. So this viewer wants to know, can you talk about the hustle and your work ethic? What does it take to get as far as you have? I'm trying to figure it out myself, but COVID isn't really helping. What a relatable question. And Rosie, I know that you've been an entrepreneur since you were a kid. You were doing people's makeup, having your own makeup business as a teenager. And then obviously from there, you're an author, TV personality, you have a brand, you know, you've created not only this book, but like also so many other projects, fashion trends, all of these things along the way. So let's talk about how we do this now, especially with COVID. I can see how people's motivations are being dragged down and knowing what's possible and what's out there.
I think there's a power in networking. I think right now the power in communication virtually is very important. It's the way that we're starting to live this, now. But I think when you're starting a business or you're going chasing a passion or a dream, I think it's very important to be clear on what is it that you want. The next thing is, why do you want it? So the moments that you don't feel so motivated to go after it, you could read your why. The why is very important that you find that why, because that's the driver. There's going to be ups and downs in life. There's ups where everything is going good, you're connecting, you're feeling good, everything's going. And then there's the downs when rejection. And rejection is not a bad thing. It's just redirection. It's about giving it a different story. It's just life telling you, this isn't working. Go another way. This isn't working. Go another way. And I think those are the moments that you're really, life is testing you, saying, how bad do you want it? Is this really what you want? And when you really want it, you keep going. Now, I've been in this industry since 2008. So everything that I've learned has been, so many years of knocking on doors. But I could tell you that one of the things that I'm so grateful for is the work ethic that my parents instilled in me, because if I needed to be in an audition coming from Vegas at, in the morning to being in LA at 4:00, even if it was a 15-minute audition, I wanted it so bad. I would drive, go back to Vegas. I would figure out a way. There was sleepless nights. There's a moment where you hustle hard and you go after it. There's 24 hours a day. What are you going to do with it? And being passionate about it. The power of connection and relationships I have learned until today. It's so important to be grateful for those relationships, because other people's support makes a huge difference in everything that you're doing.
And I think one of the things that is so important for everybody to recognize is that it doesn't happen overnight, right? Success doesn't happen overnight, obviously. And people, when they say, oh, well, somebody looks like they're just, they caught like a stroke of luck. And I think it's not really that. When we look at these people and we look at their fame, their successes, and we think, oh, maybe they just got lucky. I mean, of course, like, we have angels, we have people who give us those opportunities. But when you really look back into somebody's history who has been successful, they have been working at it for years. Yeah. Like, I remember some of my favorite actors, it kind of looks like it's their breakout role. And you think, oh, like, whoa, they just like booked this crazy like A-list movie. But then you go into their IMDb and you see that they've had like 80 tiny roles for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So, we all have to sort of keep going. Like you said, really think about if it's truly what you want. And if it's not, don't waste your time on it, right?
Yeah. And it's okay to change your mind. Like, if it's something you don't want, it's so important to just, I think honesty is really important as well. If you find that it's really not your passion, you're not really wanting to go after, you're not really wanting to invest the time, then you have to be honest with yourself and be okay with moving on. I did that. Like, I could tell you that I did that. I had a towing company. That was not for me. I did it for several years and I'm so grateful for that lesson. I moved on. The makeup was fantastic for a season. But it was not for me. I moved on. But those were all learning lessons that I had to get real with myself. Rosie, is this really where you see yourself moving forward? And get honest with you. And don't be ashamed, because it all brings lessons. It brings lessons.
Exactly. And speaking of lessons, you've learned so many lessons throughout your life, gone through adversity, all these relationships, being okay with yourself, self-acceptance, self-development. You've learned so much about yourself and your self-esteem. How can all of this become empowering rather than something where people look back at their past and they think of themselves as a victim? So you're for the experiences you've been through, but like, how can you move past that? Like, I've been hurt. I've been, the martyr. I've been the one who people have attacked. Like, how do you move past that to empowerment?
Oh my goodness. Because at some point you have to stop you got to get sick and tired of being the victim and say, wow, when does my story change? When am I willing to give it a different story? So I could be here and telling you, my goodness, like, the husbands that I had, they all cheated on me. How dare they do that? Or I could say, look, I got cheated on, God bless him, I have to move on. This is what it taught me, not to, make sure that my values were straight. What else did it teach me? To have a humble heart. Sometimes you can't wait for an apology that you're never going to get. Move on. What did it teach me? To be able to forget and let go. Why? Because that's just a sign of my spirit, not a sign of them. My spirit of what I'm willing to do to heal and just let it go and move on. As a parent, of saying, I wasn't the best parent in the world. I really had issues that I had to work on, but I need to do the work right now to have a better relationship with my kids. How am I going to heal that? What can I actively do to become a mom that's more loving, more involved, more understanding? So I'm really there for my kids. So it's really about saying, okay, I acknowledge, forgive me for doing that. Forgive me for hurting you. Acknowledging also the pain that we cause as human beings, because we're all guilty of going through that as well, causing pain. But I think it really takes personal responsibility, apologizing, but being able to take consistent action of saying, what am I going to do to make this relationship better? What can I contribute? How can I add value? What can I do just to love more?
I love that. And we have one more question before I bring Teresa from Chevalier's books back. But this one question I think is so great, because it's really about being a woman is tough, but it's like a million times harder, this viewer says, to be a woman in the public sphere. So yeah, like how do you deal with it? Because obviously there's still critics, right? I mean,
oh God.
I literally just saw like the craziest comment on my Instagram yesterday, and I was like, oh, report and block, because there's still going to be those people out there no matter what, So what do you do with that? No matter who you are, right? It doesn't matter. Like there's always going to be that criticism.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is so interesting. It's a great subject to talk, because when you start reading all the criticism, you start listening, there's a point of view that you're human. It will get underneath your skin. Like it will, there's things that you pay attention. You're like, it kind of, if you don't have the self-love, the self-respect, you'll start questioning it. So you build to that. It's something that you work on a daily. Why? Because like we talked about this, that inner voice starts messing with you. And then you're like, damn, I wonder if that's true. Then you start second guessing. And that's where the danger zone is, because then that's when you could fall into a little bit of depression, a little bit of sadness, and kind of start, stepping back, and can't allow that negativity to become your truth. But just today I was on Univision and Telemundo. It's the launch of my book. And, they put my video out on social media. I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, thank you, God. Like my book is out. And then of course, here I am. I want to, I just want to be thankful. So I start responding to some of the comments. And then as I go down, you see some of the comments and you're like, they're tearing me apart. People have torn me apart because I'm too big. I've lost weight. I sold out to Hollywood. I got cosmetic surgery all over my face. That my butt's fake. I mean, I could just tell you like all the stuff that they were instead of listening to the message. And I'm like, all right, no more reading. It doesn't matter. I will be graceful and respond to the people that are showing me love. And to those, I'm not going to make it my story. I'm not going to make it my truth. I'm not going to let it make me insecure. It's a reflection of them. And I think that's what we have to really come into an understanding when people are negative, or they have that toxic criticism towards you. Yeah. You just have to understand that that's on them. And you have to be able to say block and delete, or you know what? I'm going to love you from afar, because right now I don't know what's going on, but I can't take that in. And you have to just understand when to walk away.
And I think it's so important. What a great message, because you really do have to sort of take that away and not let your own thoughts and feelings and behaviors be messed with by somebody else. And like, you have to remove yourself from that toxicity. And
I think that has to do with and that even has to do with personal relationships. Yeah. I mean, even personal relationships, if it's something toxic in your life, you cannot allow yourself to be around that. And it's okay. Even if you love the person, it's okay to say, you know what, I got to step away, because this is not healthy. Like there's boundaries. You do not cross that line. I don't cross that line. You don't cross that line. And we just don't go that way, because it'll bring you down eventually.
It really will. And again, I think you've given so many amazing positive messages to everybody today. And I just wanted to bring our host back. Thank you so much, Teresa, for hosting this event, for Rosie. It's been so lovely to get to connect with Rosie today. And I know Teresa had one last question for you too. So
Yes. So this is actually a question I think that might be great for both of you, which is that you are both doing a million things at once, obviously, and you've both dabbled in all kinds of media and types of content from TV, the podcast. And I'm so curious about what is the difference or what does it mean to have a book with your name on it, with your face on it? And what was the hardest or most unexpected part of putting out that book versus putting out other kinds of content, which you've both done before?
So, Dr. Judy, you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I want you to wrap everything up. So, for me, I think, no matter how confident you feel, you've done the work, you've done, you worked hard, you know that the book is based in something real, something tangible, and something that you've really put your effort towards. When you release a book, it's always scary because then it's out in the universe and you don't know what people are going to think of it. But I have to say that I just so enjoyed the book journey, just writing it, getting to celebrate it, getting to still talk about it to this day. I just feel incredibly fortunate that it's sort of this gift that keeps on giving. And so even despite maybe like second guessing yourself at times and being like, oh my gosh, is anybody really gonna care? It's been such a lovely thing to see that it's helped people. And my book was published about a year ago and I still get emails every other day from people saying, I read your book, it was so great. Or people asking me, tell me more tips that we can do to like help ourselves improve. And it's really, really meaningful to get to do that.
And I think for me, putting a book out, it was stepping into my authenticity, really learning to be authentic and getting to know myself and getting comfortable in my own skin, being able to process everything. Because there's even moments that as I was going through the book, I'm like, I forgot about that. I don't think it was that I forgot about it. I think I just shoved it in a dark, dark corner and didn't ever want to think about it again. And that was something that somewhere, somehow kept popping up as a trigger or something. So I think it's wonderful. It's a blessing to be able to do this book because I didn't have a lot of these things I was ashamed to talk about. There was a lot of these things that I didn't have anybody to talk about. There was a lot of these things that I was scared to even say. So to be able to not only verbalize it, but to have it in a book and be able to connect with someone that maybe feels ashamed about their past, is going through a deep, dark problem that they don't know where to go. And all I could do is pray that this book is something that's going to bring healing, that's going to bring wisdom, that's going to bring a connection. And that's really all I could do. It's like, here, God, here I am. I put my work, just like Dr. Judy said, I put my best work into it. I honor you with it. I give it to you. And from there, like, I'll keep doing the work. I'll keep knocking on the doors, but it's another opportunity. And with that, you have to work very, very hard. And I think it comes to authenticity and connection. When you really do it with the heart to be able to pay it forward, I think that's when the doors open.
Yeah.
That's amazing. On behalf of Chevaliers Books, on behalf of myself, I want to thank both of you for this fantastic evening. You had such great energy this whole night. I feel super energized just from listening from the two of you. I do want to say to everyone who is watching, I am once again posting the link to buy a copy of The Girl with the Self-Esteem Issues online in support of Chevaliers Books. If you would like to get a copy in store, we do plan on hopefully getting some signed copies next week. So just go to our website, make a request, and we'll make sure you get one. Judy or Rosie, any last words before we say goodbye tonight?
Well, I have just one thing to say for my wishes for Rosie. I mean, I adore Rosie. I feel like you're my family. And, we had such a wonderful time together on Face the Truth and before that on The Doctors. And I just perceive you, Rosie, to be such a wonderful role model for so many people. And I love you so much. And I just wish you the very, very best for your book journey. And I hope everybody buys your book, listens to your message, and improves their life from it.
Oh my God, thank you so much. And everybody, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for taking the time out of your crazy schedule to be able to support me in my dream. So thank you. That really means a lot to me. These are the kind of things that really mean something in life. If someone takes time to be able to support and push you forward. And for the viewers watching and listening, I think it's just so important to be able to affirm who you are, declare it, breathe it, speak it until you believe it, until you walk it. And just remember, you are worthy of your heart's desires. You are perfectly imperfect. You are an amazing human being. The best is coming your way if you choose that path. Do the hard work, work with love, discipline, and a humble heart. And trust me, the world is yours. You could create anything. Your past doesn't dictate your future. You do.
Amazing. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.